TV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Money Matters with Shannon Jackson, personal finance show focused on moving you forward financially. On today's show, are you planning a last-minute holiday or searching for a deal? If you're looking online, you may want to beware because there are a lot of scams out there. So, how can you protect yourself? My guest today has some great advice for you. He has more than 20 years of security industry experience. He is an established author, blogger, and speaker on the current threat landscape, security technologies and products, data protection, privacy and trust, and internet safety. He's also on the board of directors of the National Cybersecurity Alliance and the Chief Security Evangelist at ESET. Tony Anscombe, welcome to Money Matters, and thank you for being here.
Oh, great to be here. And hi, Shannon.
Before we sort of get into our main discussion today, can you share a little bit about ESET and what your role is as a Chief Security Evangelist?
Well, people always ask me about the word evangelist. It basically means I go around and talk about cybersecurity, be it from down at the consumer end where, us personally potentially have fraud against us by cyber attackers of some nature, or online scams, all the way up to big enterprises having cyber incidents, ransomware incidents, etc. So quite a wide range of topics.
Well, you're definitely an expert in the topic that we're going to talk about today. And so, of course, summer is here, and many are planning to get away on a trip, and many are logging on and looking for the best deals, maybe for those last-minute holidays. There was one recent survey that said about 80% of Canadians claim that they really need a vacation, and the same amount are planning to take a trip this year. And there was another survey that also showed that about 85% of Canadians plan to search for deals when it comes to their holidays. And they're searching for savings, primarily, of course, online. They're searching for the better rates for accommodations, for flights, car rentals, attractions, and even meal deals. And so if you're among those who are logging on to surf for those savings, we just want to give you a bit of a warning because digital travel scams are on the rise. So Tony, apparently this rise in these types of scams is very significant. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It certainly is. And there was actually a survey or some statistics put out by Booking.com who said they've seen an increase from anywhere between 500 and 900% in travel scams. And that sounds like a significant increase, and it is. And unfortunately, what that is attributed to is actually the simplicity now for cyber scammers, those online scammers, because it's become easier for them to create their phishing emails and their content and to make things look real. Once upon a time, I would have turned and said to you, oh, look for the bad grammar or look for the mistakes in the email. Even I'm challenged today in finding those mistakes or actually spotting that it's phishing. So it's a growing problem. And some of this is because, of course, AI came along and we're all using some of those AI tools to correct our language sometimes or write something for us. Unfortunately, so are the cyber scammers.
And so you sort of gave us a good segue. How are these scams being brought out to the public online?
Well, of course, unfortunately, most of our information is breached at some stage. I mean, all of our email addresses have been in some data breach, and that's an unfortunate fact. So scammers can go on the dark web. They can download large amounts of emails so that they can then distribute their phishing emails. So in your inbox, it might pop up, it might look real, something saying, cheap flights to Vancouver this weekend. And if you just so happen to be looking for that weekend away, you might well click on it and look for those cheap flights. Yeah, and that's unfortunately how those scams get distributed. Is there are a lot of emails all sent to a lot of people, but for a certain portion of that distribution, they'll land in the inbox at the opportune moment where they actually might be looking for something along those lines. But for the rest of us, we probably just delete them thinking, I don't want to go to, this weekend is not my Vancouver weekend.
So this blanket of sort of almost spammy emails, it's almost worth it for these criminals to send out hundreds of thousands of emails just for that small percentage that maybe will click on that deal. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't really cost anything to send the emails. So therefore, any return on it, even if it's under 1%, is going to be significant for the scammer in getting money back. And bear in mind, they might not just be scamming you once. They might be collecting your personal information, and that scam could go over several times, or it might not be that one night of hotel accommodation you think you're buying. It could be somebody then creating 30 or 40 different transactions on a credit card data that you gave them, and they may well be laundering money through the credit card in that way. So for example, let me give you an example. They might be buying insurance policies, then cancelling the insurance policies in the cooling off period. You can cancel things after you've initially purchased, and then they get a refund to a different card. So some vendors will then refund to a different payment source. If you turn around and say, well, that card's expired, or that card, I no longer have that card, could you refund to somewhere else? So they'll in effect use your personal information to gain money.
And are they targeting sort of certain travel websites? We mentioned earlier that there was you mentioned that there was a survey done by booking.com. Are websites like that being targeted?
Absolutely, because we all have trust in certain brands, don't we? Whether it's booking.com, VRBO, Airbnb, Expedia, there are brands that we automatically have. Oh, if it's on booking.com, it's probably all right, and I'll go off and book that. So they'll make their emails look really, really like booking.com emails or Expedia emails, to the point where it will be difficult to tell the difference. You need to look at the addressing in the email to actually spot whether it's a scam or not.
And of course, I think you sort of mentioned this a little bit earlier with all of the changes that are happening in our digital world, how things are advancing. You mentioned AI as well. Is it becoming easier and easier for these scammers to take advantage of people?
Yeah, well, the answer to that is twofold: yes and no. I think because their craft is becoming easier, so it means actually it's easier for somebody to become a scammer. But at the same time, companies like us at ESET, we have anti-phishing technology. Our technology improves, so it's at the same time technology is improving. The education programs such as we're on today, explaining to consumers what to watch out for, is educating the user base as well on actually not clicking and not being too ready to go after what looks cheap and what looks unreasonably cheap. So yes and no.
So as scammers become more sophisticated, our tools also become more sophisticated to fight them. So it's maybe a bit of a twofold advancement of technology that we're consistently fighting against each other, it seems.
It is. Unfortunately, though, I will say the scammers tend to be very quick. So, for example, if you saw something happen in the world today, they'll be on it and campaigning on it tomorrow. So they have a quick turnaround and put something out very fast. And sometimes maybe that takes us all by surprise. It's amazing how quickly they can pivot and create campaigns. I'm sure as your own TV company, I'm sure it's not that easy, is it, to create email campaigns? It takes time and effort, and these things. Scammers, unfortunately, do it overnight.
Well, there was a Better Business Bureau sort of survey before the pandemic happened, and it said that travel and vacation scams were the riskiest in Canada, and nearly 2/3 of victims actually lost money up to $5,000, which is a really significant amount, of course, to lose. So if someone is a victim of one of these scams, they've lost a significant amount of money. Is it possible to get that money back?
It depends how it was paid. If you've made a wire transfer and the wire transfer is going outside of the boundaries of your own banking systems, i.e. outside of Canada, then it may actually be tough to get that money back. If it's going within the Canadian environment, you have an element of time where the bank may well actually be able to reverse the transfer of funds. So if it was a wire transfer. If you make a payment on a credit card, but a scammer's not going to ask you for, they're not typically going to make a transaction on your credit card. They might ask you for your credit card data so they can go and spend money on your card data, but it's unlikely they're going to process a payment. But if you are concerned that a site does look suspicious, a credit card data is good to give because, as we all know, credit card companies have a relatively good policy of refunding it back to the cardholder if somebody's being scammed in that way. And obviously don't use your debit card. This is a big no-no because if somebody empties your bank account, this could be a little bit more devastating than having a large credit card balance for a month. You know, if suddenly your mortgage payments can't go out and you can't live, et cetera, et cetera. So it could be a little bit more dangerous. So yeah, stick with it. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, $5,000 is sounds a lot of money, but if you're talking about a cottage rental, for example, and if you're staying for a week, $5,000 actually might be exactly the money you would have paid to have that vacation.
Yes, it could end up being your entire sort of savings to go on that particular trip. So it's a significant amount. So if someone actually has become a victim of one of these scams, what do you advise that they should do?
Well, firstly, don't be embarrassed. Yeah, and I say that because there is a stigma to it, isn't there? There's some issue here that people may feel embarrassed, but report it to the authorities. And in Canada, the Canada Anti-Fraud Centre is a good place to start. You can make the report online, or you could call them and make that report. And the reason to report it is if authorities don't understand the scale of the issue, then the right amount of resources aren't assigned to the issue. So actually by reporting it, you're helping law enforcement understand the scale so that the right amount of effort can be put into actually stopping the scams going forward.
Yes, I would agree, because the more people are aware of what these scams are, the more protection can be sort of put in place for these types of things. So I agree, reporting these scams is really, really important. And so if any of our viewers are among the many Canadians that are maybe planning that last minute getaway, Tony's going to have some really good advice for you to ensure or to help protect yourself from falling victim to these scammers. And that's going to be right after the break when Money Matters returns.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
After a night out with your friends, there's always options for getting home safely. You could call your BFF, your mom or dad, whoever you can count on for a safe ride home. You could call your favorite cab company or 1-888 taxi guy. Or you could use the Arrive Alive smartphone app to help you choose your ride. Be it a friend, transit, or taxi, getting home safely is app easy. Now available for iOS and Android devices. Visit arrivealive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
With Rogers TV, you can cheer on the home team from the comfort of your living room. We'll head to the rink, the field, the court, or the pitch, so you don't have to. Tune in and cheer on your local amateur athletes on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Money Matters with Shannon Jackson. My guest today is Tony Anscombe, Chief Security Evangelist at ESET. And we've been discussing the increases in travel fraud. And as you heard in the opening segment, it is on the rise substantially. And Canadians, unfortunately, are falling victim, and many are losing thousands of dollars. So, Tony, I want to get into sort of giving some advice for our viewers who might be planning a trip. How can someone avoid, or what should they be looking out for when they're doing these online searches for their trips?
Well, I think the first thing I'd say, Shannon, is if something sounds too good to be true, then it is. It's just, it's never, you're never going to find this killer bargain that nobody else has ever seen. Yeah. So if something sounds too good to be true, just ignore it and move on, and stick with the reputable sites that you know and love, and do your research. Look for, if you're booking hotels or booking flights or car rental or such like, stick to companies you know and booking sites that you know, and make sure that you're not actually clicking. If you see them make an offer in an email, don't actually click the offer in an email. Go to the website and look for the offer. Actually go into your browser, type in the address, and that way, if it was a scammy email, or if you get to the website and can't find the offer, it was a phishing email. Now, one thing that is an issue is sometimes people will advertise things in social media. So I don't know whether you've seen this, Shannon, but you'll see something pop up in social media saying, hey, I've got a cottage rental, or I've got, this property that This is in effect taking the Airbnb model and taking it onto social media. And they may actually even have a listing on Airbnb, but they'll try and take the payment through some other source. They'll turn and say, oh, you don't want to book it through the official platform or whatever. And they'll try and take you down a different payment method. As soon as that happens, it's a scam. You know it's a scam. They're going to try and get you to do a wire transfer, pay by cryptocurrency, or some other weird method that they're going to want payment through. Now, one thing you can do, if you think something may look real, what you can do is download the picture. So if you right-click a picture in the internet, you get the option to save the image. Save the image to your machine, and then go to Google and do what's called a reverse image lookup. So you just Google reverse image lookup, and Google will take you to the page that allows you to do this. It will ask you to upload the picture. Then it will tell you everywhere on the internet that picture is. So if somebody does have this wonderful rental that they're trying to give you for a really cheap price, then suddenly you can actually see if it's real. Because if suddenly it appears in the search results, that reverse image search result, and it shows a different address or a different location, or it's listed on 5 different sites with different places, it's just not real. So there's a really solid tip. There's other things of don't reply to phishing emails and such like. In fact, delete them when you see the subject. Don't open these emails, because even opening the email can sometimes tell the scammer that you're an active email user, and they'll try sending more emails to you. So don't do that. I think I've already covered, don't pay by strange methods. If you have clicked on something, or if you're about to click on something, if you're on an email, hover over the link. Make sure the URL looks correct. So and that can be a little challenging, especially if you're on a mobile phone. Because if you're on a mobile phone, you don't really get that option to hover over it. But and your browser on a mobile phone may actually pop the URL out of the screen. Make sure you pull the screen back down and actually look at the URL. Make sure you're going to the site you think you are. And don't, if somebody tries to take you off down the dark web, or you think, you want to venture off into the dark web, which I don't recommend for anybody, by the way, for any reason whatsoever. There are things on the dark web you could go find, but there's no reason for normal. I would say that 99.9% of us to go there. So I would try and avoid that. Another one is public Wi-Fi. Now, this is a big one. So if you're like me, and Shannon, I'm going to ask you this question to see whether you are like me. I have this habit. We go on a family vacation. We go somewhere, and just say I'm coming to Toronto as an example. I'm the person that didn't book the tickets to go up the CN Tower. And I'm the person that will look for them the morning that I want to go up the tower. yeah,
Right.
and find that they're all sold, that they're all booked for the next 3 days. So then I start scrambling around to see whether I really can get tickets. Now, this is a really bad. I hope you're not like me. Yeah.
I am not. I try my best to pre-book everything, but I see where you're going, I think, with this.
Well, the problem is then you go online and you start searching, and you're going to get some adverts, and you're going to get some, well, meet me on this corner, and you can give me some cash. I've got 3 tickets, and these are scams. Yeah, they don't work. They don't work out in that way. So my big thing here is, make sure that research and planning you do on where you're going. Make sure that you're actually looking at what I define as the attractions of somewhere that may be difficult to get. So where I am in San Francisco, sometimes, Alcatraz is a good example. You have to book that weeks in advance. If you're going to Paris, we have the Olympics on at the moment, don't we? You'd need Eiffel Tower tickets well in advance of getting into Paris. So always book these things as soon as you decide you're going somewhere. Book the tickets for the attraction. Now, if only I could learn from my own advice here, because I so don't do this. Yeah. But what happens then when you land somewhere, of course, you go into a coffee shop and think, oh, I need these tickets, and I'm going to connect to public Wi-Fi and start searching for the tickets. This is not such a good idea either, because public Wi-Fi is exactly what it says. It's public. And there's nothing. And people often say, should I use it? Shouldn't I use it? Well, if you're somewhere and all you're going to do is go and maybe read the news, carry on. I mean, it's not a lot of harm. But if you're going to transact, or if you're going to put in personal information, or you've got to log on to something, then that's a completely different game. Then I would always recommend using a VPN. And if you don't have a VPN on your device, then use your cell phone, because the cell phone is not on that public Wi-Fi network. It's using the cellular data network, and I would go down that path. You can even hotspot your laptop to your phone and use it that way. So, try and avoid VPN, especially if you're transacting.
All of that is really good advice, and I didn't know about the checking the images on Google to see if they show up anywhere else, because I've heard of instances where people are advertising properties that don't belong to them on accommodation websites, and I feel like that's becoming more and more common.
Well, the other scam there as well is somebody may actually rent an Airbnb. So say that you've got a legitimate property and it's in the center of Toronto. Yeah, I'm just giving you this as an example. What they'll actually do is they could rent, while they're staying in the property, they'll claim it's their property and try and rent it to others. So you may actually even you could even FaceTime them and have a video conversation with the person, and it looks like they're in the property because they are in the property at that moment in time. So I'm just pointing out some of these scammers are super clever. And have thought of, unfortunately, all the ways that might dupe us into handing over cash. I think a while back they were actually there were a few of them caught trying to rent the properties on a longer term, so like 6-12 month rental, offering the property they've rented for 1 or 2 days for 6 to 12 month rents, and people were handing over larger deposits. So just be aware that if it's not through one of those official sites, then just avoid it. And the way those official sites actually rent you properties has protections in there for you as well. So, for example, if you're renting your cottage up by the lake, and I'm renting it from you, I may well pay a deposit, or I may pay the whole amount before I get there. But the property rental site, like Airbnb or VRBO, will hold on to that money. They don't give it to you, the person who owns the property, until I'm there and they know there's no issue. So there's already protection built into the actual rental system. So that's why those sites sometimes may feel a little cumbersome, and they might ask for deposits up front, but that's there for the protection of you as the renter and for you as the landlord.
it's so interesting that people think about renting a property and then essentially subletting it to someone else while they're supposedly there. I didn't think of that, and so that's an interesting scam to watch out for. That's amazing. Can you go into a little bit about double checking if a seller is ATOL protected? What does that mean?
Well, so in certain areas, certain geographies in the world, what you'll find is actually the travel companies are required and flight companies are required to, in effect, protect the consumer. So it's your rights as a consumer. So, for example, if you book a flight in Europe and you get delayed, the airline has to give you a hotel room and they have to provide you food, et cetera, et cetera. So, whereas it's not always the case wherever you are in the world. And they may have to make a refund or compensate you in certain ways if there's longer delays. An ATOL, or ATOL, as you put it, is one of those insurance schemes, and that's primarily based in the European market. But I'm just saying, do that research as well, because depending on where in the world you're going, it may actually be advantageous to have those backups, those consumer protections in place.
So as part of our research process, we should really be thinking about not only where do we want to go and what do we want to see and experience, but also if something goes sideways where perhaps we need to cancel or something unexpected happens with our flight, we should be looking at that research as well to make sure that we are protected just in case we're looking for refunds and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it may be something personal. I mean, hopefully somebody doesn't have an accident or fall ill. But it could be, I use an example of what happens if a volcano erupts and it throws ash into the air and flights can't go to where you're going. So those protections are in place that it might actually refund that dream holiday you've been saving up for and give you the opportunity to do it again. So make sure you are protected in the right way.
We talked a little bit earlier about the use of AI. Do you have any advice if we want to use an AI product to do our research? Any guidance with that?
Well, firstly, AI as we're using it today in things like ChatGPT or the other variants that are out there, is coming back with search results found in lots of places. I'd suggest using it for what I define as history research, but I'm not sure I'd use it for booking research. I'd use traditional search engines, Google or Bing for those. But if you wanted to know the history of, say, the Eiffel Tower or the CN Tower, yeah, go ahead and ask ChatGPT what the history of one of those places is.
Well, that's perfect. Tony, I really want to thank you for being here today. We're going to put up all of your contact information on our screen so that viewers, if they want to get in touch with you, they can do that. And I also want to thank you, our viewers, for watching. Until next time, I'm Shannon Jackson.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
The regulars, the guys who keep this place in business. Last week, they had something to celebrate. Jason had just finished university, so they toasted his profs, his TAs, his old roommates. Well, they toasted just about everyone.